Hi, I'm Jenny Williams, the Director of Educational Support Services with Society of Christian Schools in BC. I'm also the Project Manager for the Wellbeing BC website. And I'm joined here today with my friend, Dr. Kimberly Schonert-Reichl. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi everyone, it's such a pleasure to be here with you today, Jenny. I'm Kim Schonert-Reichl. I'm a professor at the University of British Columbia in the Faculty of Education, and I'm also an expert in the area of social and emotional learning.
This video is to introduce you to the Assessment and Growth Plan for School-Wide Wellbeing and SEL. I'd like to start with asking you, why is it important to have a school-wide approach to well-being and SEL?
There are several reasons why it's so important right now in this time in history to be focused on the social and emotional well-being of all of our children and youth. One is we've known that there's increased concerns about mental health and those factors that affect the well-being of children, including levels of heightened stress and anxiety, which are particularly high right now during the pandemic. We know that approximately 1 in 5 children suffer from mental health disorders, and yet we also know that many of those problems can be prevented. What we also know is that social and emotional skills can be taught, that children can learn these skills. They're malleable. We know from recent science on neuroplasticity that the brain can change and that you can teach skills like being able to manage stress, being able to have empathy for others, being able to manage conflicts with others, being able to build relationship skills and make ethical and responsible decisions. These are all critical aspects that we know are important. What we also know is that these factors have long-range implications, that children with these strong social and emotional skills not only do better in school and get along better with others and have more happiness and well-being, they also predict a number of long-term life outcomes. Children with strong social and emotional skills are more likely to have stable employment, graduate from high school, finish post-secondary, and actually have better social and emotional and mental health in adulthood. So these are all critical factors. But what we know is that any approach can't just be a one-time deal. Like it can't be they just have one social and emotional learning program and just present it to children once. That actually what you need to do is have a school-wide approach, not just one program, but everyone together thinking about systemic ways to approach social and emotional learning and well-being of students. And we'll be talking more about all those different aspects.
And why do we use both the terms well-being and social emotional learning in this toolkit?
Well, what we know is social and emotional learning includes these skills that CASEL, or the Collaborative for Academic Social and Emotional Learning, has identified that includes self-awareness, being able to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses, being able to have optimism, being able to be inclusive, self-management, being able to manage your stress, identify emotions, being able to control your behavior and know what factors can interfere, as well as things like social awareness, being able to have empathy for others, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, even things like relationship skills, managing conflict with others, being able to really make new friends, keep friends for a long time, and then responsible decision making. Those are the essential skills that help us do well, have success both in school and in life. Now, well-being is being able to have a sense of happiness, being able to be optimistic, being able to feel healthy and connected. And what we know is those social and emotional skills of like self-management actually lead to well-being. So you really need both terms. Now, what was the reason for developing this school-wide assessment toolkit?
We wanted to create an easy-to-use and flexible assessment and growth plan for schools. It took a systematic approach, and this will allow schools to move forward an SEL plan with intention. We wanted to include resources that draw from the latest research and experts in the field. We really want this toolkit to help schools promote healthy behaviors, relationships, and choices in children and youth and adults that will continue throughout their lifetime.
Jenny, that is so amazing. That's so important because we know that these social and emotional skills are so foundational to success in school and in life, and how important it is to really take this systemic approach. And this toolkit really provides all of the resources that schools need.
Well, Kim, how can we plan for school-wide well-being in SEL?
But what we know is we really need a systemic approach. You can't just take one portion of the school and say, we're just going to do it in the classroom, or we're only going to do it in the hallways, or we're only going to do it after school. That we need to involve everyone into the growth plan that has to happen. We know we need to focus on school-wide policies and practices like discipline approaches. How do we greet students in the morning? How do we embed social and emotional learning and a focus on well-being? I always like to say in the doors and the floors and the pores, in every aspect of that, we need to really pay attention to creating a supportive school and classroom environment so children feel safe, they feel nurtured, they feel that they can participate, they feel their voice is heard. And that's not true just only for the children or the students, it's really true for all of the adults in the building. We need to have specific intentional approaches to teaching these SEL skills. So we can't just, even though we need the foundation of the caring environment in the policies and practices, we also need really specific programs, evidence-based social emotional learning practices and programs that we know are effective. And finally, what is so foundational is we need to involve the family and the community. We need to make them partners in this endeavor. We can't just make it a school-wide approach and leave the family and the community out. We really need to integrate that and find ways that we involve parents, that we involve community partners to really embed it so that it's really so much part of a larger system, that foundational is about promoting social emotional learning and well-being.
So before schools jump into using the Assessment and Growth Plan Toolkit, what are some important things to know about the process for school-wide change and growth?
Well, we really have to think about change management and really think about what are sort of the essential conditions that we need to have in place before you can make such a large change and really take this intentional approach to a system-wide approach to social emotional learning. We know that for people to work together, there needs to be a high degree of relational trust, that people, that the adults in the school, the children, all have to trust each other in the process and really be able to listen to one another. So, if I think about, if a school is moving into this, to really get the pulse on how are we connected, how do we communicate? And I think how essential it would be to begin this process by hearing from everyone, showing this video, going through the toolkit to let parents, to let teachers, to let even the students know that this process is going to take place, and really to, even though there's a school team, what's going to be the communication strategy and how do we make sure that we create the space so everyone can contribute, because really that is foundational, that you have to involve everyone who will be affected by the change in the decision-making processes and have a stake in it as well. Jenny, it's an amazing toolkit and assessment guide. What are the parts of it?
There are 3 parts to the toolkit. Part 1 contains the training tools, which are this introductory video that you're watching, and training PowerPoint, which can be downloaded from the website. Part 2 contains the assessment tools, and we really wanted to provide schools with choice, and so we have provided a Excel spreadsheet that can be downloaded that has room for shorter version of writing brief points, and then there's also a workbook version which can be downloaded with more space for writing in greater detail. Part 3 contains the research-based resources to help schools with growth planning, and these are contained as hyperlinks in the workbook, or they're also on the website.
Now, we really need to know, how do schools use the toolkit?
There are 8 steps in implementing the toolkit. First, the Wellbeing or SEL team sets a meeting to watch the introductory video and review the training PowerPoint, which can be downloaded from the website. This can be also really helpful to show to the staff so they understand the process, and you can even show it to families as well and really make sure that your whole school community understands the journey that you're on. Secondly, the team downloads either the spreadsheet or the workbook version of the Assessment and Growth Plan and chooses which version they want to use. 3, the team determines the scope of the assessment by determining the topics and pillars that they want to focus on. 4, the team completes the assessment portion by answering what are our strengths and what do we want more of. These are found in both the spreadsheet version and the workbook version of the assessment tools. It's really clearly laid out for you to follow. Number 5 is the team refers to the resource section of either the website or it's found in the workbook. And this assists with answering the question, how are we going to get there? It's really great if you can get input from the staff as needed along the way. 6, the team presents the growth plan to staff and asks for their feedback. This makes it a very collaborative process so that everyone feels like they have ownership. It's really helpful to have the school community on the same page in this process. Then the team finalizes and implements the plan and amends it as needed. Step 7 is kind of an optional plan. It's very helpful, but the team may wish to summarize the assessment and growth plan in a short report that includes timelines and people responsible for implementing various parts of the growth plan. Lastly, for step 8, the team makes a timeline for revisiting the growth plan to identify the achievements and challenges and to make steps forward. These directions are also listed on the training PowerPoint and in the workbook, so you can find them to refer back to them.
So Jenny, that is so incredible. All of these tools that really help in that stepwise sequence of what direction people need to go in when they're really moving forward with this assessment toolkit.
Kim, do you have any advice for schools just starting to use the Assessment and Growth Plan Toolkit?
Well, I think the first step really is that they've agreed to go on to this journey. You know, they've made a commitment to really focus on promoting the social and emotional learning and well-being of their students. And what we know is so important is first to check how much buy-in is there? Do people understand what social and emotional learning is? Do they understand what well-being is? How do you involve the whole school community? How do you involve parents and community members in the plan? So I think really thinking of a way to involve everyone and not rushing into it too quickly to try and get through all the steps, but really think through each one and realize that sometimes they might have to revisit a step to make sure that they have not skipped over anything. I do feel that it's good to start small and not to have this whole comprehensive plan where they're going to try and, you know, do everything in one sitting. They really want to go and reflect and have time for getting some feedback on how things are going. In fact, I think that would be a really good point to really figure out how are we going to communicate this information? What is our plan? What are the opportunities we're going to use to get feedback, to hear from our parents, to hear from the staff, to hear from even the students to see how it's going. So I think that that's so critical to involve everyone in this plan because it's a journey. And I think the other thing to me that's really important is to think about what is the long range goal. So on the one hand, you have a short-term goal and you could say we're making our way through this assessment guide, we're getting to the end, but that doesn't mean you're finished because you have to figure out what do we have in place to sustain the growth we've made? How do we celebrate our successes? How do we learn from any sort of missteps we've made along the way? How do we look at those as opportunities to really further our growth? So I think, I think, you know, if I had one piece of advice, I would really say is how important it is to involve everyone and to really go about it in a way that's collaborative and that also has lots of opportunities for feedback and thinking about how we will know that we've reached success and when we've reached our goal.
That's really such great wisdom for schools, and it makes it sound so much more doable. It's going to really involve their whole community and get them on a track that can be easily started, sustained, and have such an ongoing impact.
These tools are so essential for moving forward. Everything you said, the step-by-step guides, the way that they can involve others are really so critical. So now we've prepared these materials and it's up to the schools and all of the individuals to put it into action. So the plan is in their hands now.